Annalena Baerbock, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you very much.
Now, I've read language of yours about Israel. You say Israel's security is part of Germany's raison d'etre. And you prove that by the scale of the arms sales from Germany to Israel, second only to the US. Would an invasion of Rafah, where so many civilians are taking refuge, change Germany's position?
Well, the security of the State of Israel and the future generation is our raison d'etre. We have committed the worst crimes, the genocide, the Shoah, to 6 million Jews. But our responsibility from the past is also guaranteeing international humanitarian law. And this is why I've engaged so heavily as a German foreign minister, not only to call on Hamas to lay down its weapons, to guarantee Israel's security, but also calling on the Israeli government that humanitarian aid has to come in together, that they are fighting the Hamas terrorists and not the civilian population. And we are in a current dilemma in this situation, that the terrorists are hiding behind innocent people, and this is why we are trying everything that we can come to a humanitarian ceasefire. And I made also very clear that an offensive, a full invasion of Rafah is impossible, because 1 million people who are currently in Rafah, they cannot just disappear in the air.
But what happens, because Netanyahu has shown no sign of changing his course of action, no matter what the British say or you say or the Americans say. So what happens if he continues with that plan?
Well, we were crystal clear, as you said, together with the Americans, with the Brits, also as a G7. We made a clear statement that there needs to be guarantees for the civilians, that Israeli forces are responsible to protect the civilians in Gaza. And as I said, this is the dire situation at the moment. The same pressure has to go also on Hamas. I mean, it's Sinwar, the Hamas leader in Gaza, who didn't agree to a hostage deal, which would open the chance for a ceasefire, which is so heavily needed for the innocent 2 million people in Gaza, but also for the hostage families who haven't seen their beloved one for over 6 months.
Let me move to this region, because as I said when you arrived, we're seeing more and more representation from Europe in the Indo-Pacific, in Australia. I looked at Germany's strategy towards China. It says that China is striving for hegemony in the Indo-Pacific, dominance in the Indo-Pacific. Why is China a threat to Germany on the other side of the world?
First of all, like any country in the world, it's a partner for us, because the best thing in the world would be if countries are partners, fighting the climate crisis, working together for fair competition. Yet we are seeing that, especially with competition, that the practices we are facing also as an export country are not always fair, because there are certain sectors, for example, where European companies, German companies do not have the same access like Chinese companies having on the European market.
I want to bring you back to that word hegemony though, because that's a very strong word. You're talking about China's desire for dominance. Why does China threaten Germany?
Well, and then
Germans'
we see, and
interests?
we have a triangle partner, competitor in the field of economy, but also a system rival, because we have seen that obviously, and they made it very clear in their speeches and in their foreign policy, that they are also challenging democracies worldwide. And therefore, we are underlining, because we feel ourselves at the moment with regard to Russia, how important the rule of law is for us, for a peaceful world, that we are underlining, for example, that the law of the seas is an international law, and it has to be guaranteed everywhere around the world. We, as one of a big economic power, we have to rely on also the law of the sea, because we are exporting, we are importing, and this is where we are very clear that we are standing up for the international law.
Well, you raised that issue about Russia. I wonder whether Germany's failure to predict the intentions of Vladimir Putin has made you more cautious about what China may do next.
Definitely. I mean, life is all about sometimes doing mistakes. And obviously in Germany, former governments have not seen the Russian threat, that it's not only rhetoric, what Vladimir Putin said a couple of years ago, and you shouldn't repeat mistakes twice. And this is why we formulated for the first time in history a national security strategy, and we formulated a China strategy. The China strategy is especially based on diversification, because we Germans were so depending on Russia, on gas, on oil, that Russia calculated that in the case of the invasion, we couldn't react. We did so, because our European peace order was also under threat by Russia. But we cannot do it twice, because we paid billions for that to gain our independence from the Russian energy. So now with China, we are looking for diversification. We are not looking for decoupling, but we do not want to repeat our mistake twice, that we are so dependent that we cannot do our foreign policy free of our dependency.
Let me just ask you a question that's relevant to Australia in what you've just said, which is to do with rare earth minerals, critical minerals. How important is it for Australia? Do you want to see Australia processing those very valuable products here rather than doing what they do now, make a detour via China to be on-sold?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, this is also why I'm here, why I came to Australia, because I mean, there's hardly any country in the world which is so far away from us, yet so close to us with our values and therefore also our economic interests. And not only economic interest, our interest for democracy. I mean, we share the same DNA. And then sometimes you wonder why, with such a close partner like Australia with the EU, we are, for example, importing heavily lithium. And we have a high dependency of lithium from China. But originally, the lithium comes from Australia, comes from you. Then it's being exported to China, processed there, and then we import it again. So I mean, the smartest thing, not only for diversification, but also strengthening the ties between democracies and free markets, would be if we could import the lithium directly from Australia, and we started with that. Now with the processing, also with the German company, and I'm really happy that we also signed now a EU-Australia raw materials agreement, and hopefully soon also a trade agreement.
Now, let me ask you this, because you grew up in a much more pacifist Germany, but you say that Russia must be defeated in Ukraine at all costs. I wonder whether world events have transformed you personally from your youthful ideas of Germany's idea in the world.
Well, this is not a change of saying before we didn't understand that there might be times where you have to defend your rights and you have to defend your democracy. This is also a lesson from our history. First of all, that we do never again have a war of aggression by ourselves. This was our understanding, that we solve our problems in the world peacefully. It's not about us being aggressive, which we would not do as Europeans, but it's about defending our peace order, and this is our responsibility, and this is why we are supporting heavily Ukraine also with weapons, so they can defend themselves, but also defend the European peace order, because Putin has also made very clear, it's not the end of the war in Ukraine, but he is also threatening the European peace order, and we are really thankful that Australia, from the first day on, stood at our side. I know that this is not a given, and now the latest announcement as well to support Ukraine, this is also support for Europe, and this is why we also increased our engagement here in the Indo-Pacific, because we have all realized if peace is challenged somewhere at the world, this has effects on the other side of the world. So therefore we do have also security interest here in the Indo-Pacific to remain it peaceful.
Foreign Minister, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.